We're back there again. Well, airlines that fly asylum seekers to Rwanda on behalf of the UK government could be in breach of human rights laws, UN experts have warned.
So, will flights really ever take off? That seems to be a question we've been asking for the past 2 years now. And what does it mean if they do? Well, we're joined now by Jacqueline McKenzie, Head of Immigration and Asylum Law at Lee Day. Jacqueline, good morning. Do we know if there's a particular airline that's been lined up to take these flights to Rwanda?
Not yet. The Prime Minister said yesterday that that sort of information couldn't be revealed for security and operational reasons, which I suppose is fair enough. But what he also said was that he's looked at commandeering some RAF jets to remove people to Rwanda. So I suspect that there isn't really a commercial airline. Of course, we may not be privy to that information, but we don't think there is one. And that's why the discussion about RAF jets being used has come into play.
Jacqueline, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on. So we all have our own opinions about Rwanda. We all have our own opinions about the migration crisis. Are you a lawyer who represents these migrants?
Most of my work at the moment is dealt with. About 90% of my work is representing people who are victims of the Windrush scandal. I do have a small portfolio of cases involving people seeking asylum, people who are refugees, EU citizens who've been locked out of the EU settlement scheme, people facing deportation. And I had one client who was one of the 6 who was held on the tarmac, shackled and handcuffed, waiting to be removed to Rwanda in June 2022.
That's unbelievable. That was 2 years ago. Do you expect large numbers of people to appeal these deportation orders?
It's really quite difficult to understand how this is going to work. So in order to be able to physically handcuff somebody and get them onto a plane, you're going to have them detained. So the 120,000 people in the backlog who are living in various hotels and out in the community aren't likely to feature in this at all. So this is likely to be new people coming in who are caught not by the Rwanda safety legislation, because that works in tandem with the Illegal Migration Act of last year, and people who are deemed inadmissible because they've passed through a safe third country, or people denied refugee protection. And so that's effectively new people coming in. And if this whole idea is meant to deter people from coming, then it means that we really don't know what's going on. One thing that is definitely happening at the moment, asylum seekers in the community and in those hotels are being given or receiving telephone calls from the Home Office offering them £3,000 to go on a voluntary basis. And what we understand from some of the NGOs is that a lot of those people think they can take this £3,000, go and remigrate or come back to the UK. Wow. These are very vulnerable people. Some of them are very sick. Some of them are very traumatized.
I think the problem is, I think the problem is, and I hope I can have this conversation with you because we've tried to have it in a balanced way. I mean, I think the the scheme is a joke, and you alluded to something there which I think is really important. This is only going to be people taken from detention centres. There are how many tens of thousands of people that are already in their community? I know I'm called stupid, Jacqueline, but how we cannot process this ourselves is quite beyond me, and I think a disgrace. And if it is window dressing, but there is within this country, and you must acknowledge this, a desire, whether you're a Labour supporter or a Tory supporter, there is a desire in this country to get this problem sorted. And with certain people, if you say migration, people will label everybody an illegal migrant. Other people will say, oh, no, they all need to come here because they're all come from war-torn countries when they've been in France for 5 years. I think we need to have the debate. I think we need to get a processing system. And I think the people who need refugee status should, yes, stay, but other people need to be sent home. And I've never changed that opinion. But this isn't the answer, is it?
No, it's definitely not the answer. And, you know, there is a perception that there is a crisis borne out by the fact that, you know, we have a real rush on services and there's, you know, not enough services available to people who live in the UK. I do apologise, my battery's running low. I've just got to charge this up. However, you know, we don't get a lot of people coming here. You know, Poland has just taken in 2 million people from Ukraine. And they cope very, very well with that. So there is this perception. It's clear that this government and maybe opposition parties may want to use this issue as an election issue. And that's why I'm very concerned that very vulnerable people are being offered this £3,000, will probably be put on an RAF jet. and be flown to Rwanda. Because without a doubt, we want to see, or the government wants to see rather, a plane leave. And it won't matter thereafter what happens. We understand that the accommodation in Rwanda has been sold off to Rwandans, so there isn't even accommodation for more than, less than 100 people. It's not a real scheme. It's not designed to work. It does breach international law. And all we're really doing is at least making it look as though the issue of migration or illegal migration or excess numbers in migration is being tackled. And this is not the solution. There are things that ought to be done, but not this.
Very interesting indeed. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Jacqueline Mackenzie, migration lawyer.
Did you hear that? They've sold... So we've given them money to build accommodation for migrants that we haven't sent, and they've sold that off already.
Well, I suppose in a way, would you blame them? Because this has been a 2-year scheme. They've been there waiting all this time.
Have you heard the phrase cluster?
Well, yes, quite. I wouldn't be surprised if people in Rwanda thought, well, this is never actually going to happen. We might as well sell off the accommodation and make some more money.
Without us having an argument at 6:20 in the morning.
Oh, go on then.
What comes next, though? How does... you said Labour are going to process it abroad. How does it make any difference? So why can't we just get it done?
If people were processed abroad, they wouldn't have to make the trip over in the boats.
But why can't we process... Oh, right. But that's not dealing with your own mess, is it?
Yes, because it's stopping people... Well, it's France not necessarily dealing with their own mess.
We're giving them 500 million quid a year, aren't we?
Exactly, so we might as well...
What are they doing with that?
Patrolling the beaches.
But they're not, are they?
Well...
No.